Hello and welcome. Thank you guys so much. Toby, Mia, how are you guys doing today? It's fantastic to get you both. I know there's a massive Germany connection on this conversation, but bringing in from Sweden and from Germany, and Mia, I know you're in the US most of the time as well. So we've got a really good global conversation to happen, and a really good conversation to break down between the fitness industry, the sporting industry, and beyond. So Toby brings another unique aspect in there as well. So we're going to talk about a lot of that. So again, thank you guys for joining me. Let's get started. Mia, start us off here. First of all, I'm not going to say your name because I know I'm going to cannibalize it. So you can help make sure that we say it properly. I won't even try it. And then connect the dots for us, please, between from where you started in your career to where you are today. It's a great, very intriguing story. So please connect the dots for us.
Well, first of all, thank you, Grace, so much for having me. And no worries about my name. And that's why I normally tend to go by Mia B to make it a little bit easier for everyone around me. Bjorkroos is how I say it usually in when I speak English, and I'm not with my Swedish friends and colleagues. Um, but yeah, I mean, I, I'm really excited to have these opportunities because I think all of us sometimes need to take a break and step back and, like you just said, try to connect the dots. What have you done in your life, and how did these things come about? Because that really helps us get the energy and motivation to take the next steps and seeing how important all of those small things that we do. So in preparation, I was thinking a little bit about this, and I came up with a few words that I realized has been consistent throughout my career since I grew up. And it's, going for what you really want and push your boundaries. Never stop learning and building relationships. And I feel like that's what I have done since day one. And that's what took me to the place where I'm at today. And, why I'm in this, I've always enjoyed fitness and sports. My dad, he was a cyclist. He was very active. He took me doing different stuff. He was my soccer coach when I was, young and growing up. And he encouraged me to do things. He took me biking in south of France. We biked for like 1,000 kilometers across the French Riviera, and really doing things that I'd never expected myself to do. As I became a teenager, I was really intrigued. I got started dancing, kept being very physically active, pushing myself. And I I took my first fitness vocational training at that time. I became an aerobic instructor when I was 17. And I don't know why I did it. I've asked my mom, like, why did I do that at that time? Because that was really the pivotal moment for me. And she said, I think you just enjoyed, being able to work and make money with something that you really enjoy doing, and, exercising and making money at the same time. Great. I think that's for me. Um, so after school, I went to New York. I was accepted into a dance school. Realized really quickly that I did not want to become a modern dancer. That wasn't for me. And I missed fitness. So I came back to Sweden again, and I was doing some more. I became a diet counselor, and I wanted a university degree. And I was like, I couldn't find it. I called some universities in Sweden, and they said, you have to have a year of chemistry to do anatomy. I was like, I want to do anatomy tomorrow. And then was recommended kinesiology. And I'm not sure how familiar we are in Europe with the word kinesiology, but it's really the study of human movement, right? So I was like, wow, yes, great. And I got into a university in LA. And that's sort of how I just went and got started and did that. Throughout my years at university, I did other vocational trainings. I became a Taibo instructor. I decided to run a marathon. I did, other different trainings. I met my ex-husband, and I actually started a family right as I graduated. And here I come out of university, ready to take over the world with a little baby. And I'm realizing, whew, that was not that easy. So I spent a couple of years working for my ex-husband's company, which was a dance company, a dance convention, which was really, in the same space that I've always been in, but that really gave me those first entrepreneurial tools and training and, making sure and realizing how important it is to learning things that you might not necessarily be super duper interested in, but that helps grow the business forward. And so today I'm going to get to, as we get to the end, I'm very much into operations, and I believe it really started from that beginning of being eager to learn, to grow, and to be able to expand outside of my own abilities at the time. um, and then when things kind of slowed down, I realized, um, I got connected with another Swedish friend. So here we come back to like building relationships. uh, a Swedish friend in LA told me about this Swedish woman who had a fitness program in a fitness studio in LA. And she said, you should go try it out. It's boxing, it's dance, it's all of these things that you say that you really like. And I went to take the class. I absolutely loved it. I went up to the woman who was the founder and I say, okay, I want to do this. Make me a master trainer. I want to educate other people in it. And I thought, yes, here, I'll go and I will. Of course, I have a degree. I have this and I have that. And she looked at me like I was crazy and was like, well, maybe you should become an instructor first. And that made me take a training. I kept pushing. And at that time, so this company was piloxing. And this was really the start of my professional career in this fitness industry, the way I see it. And they were in the beginning of the development of the company. They just started. They actually had already started getting some traction in Sweden from having Swedish founders. Um, they started doing certain education, started traveling to some shows around US. And at that time, I became one of the first or the first master trainer, except for the founders, to educate other instructors in this program. And it was a great timing because a few months later, I actually ended up moving back with my family to Stockholm. So I came to Stockholm. I had this new experience. I had the ability to train instructors. And I was like, wow, well, what's going to stop me now? And I did one training that they put together. I'm not sure how familiar you are with these trainings, but certifying instructors kind of go to a gym and it's a 1 day workshop and people sign up and they come in and learn that format and become trained in it. And from that training, I built relationship with all the people that came and wanted to start teaching this format. And that was kind of my kickoff of expanding piloxing in Europe. And then I started traveling to all of these different countries and, going and doing events and shows. And I remember at one point, I was like, wow, I never could see myself on stage, even though I had been a dancer. Like I didn't necessarily see myself as a professional aerobic instructor teaching, for hundreds of people. And then suddenly I was just there and doing it. And it was like so surreal. I hadn't gone for doing that. It just happened because I had so pushed myself to do all of these things. And then suddenly I was there. So I was really excited about that. And it allowed me to start traveling, which I've always loved my entire life. Connected with me people from all over, initially Europe, but later all over the world. And we started going to all of these events. And this is my first introduction to Germany, Tobias. As far as the professional, going to FIBO, going to all the big events over there. And I started building a professional network. I started doing more of the business aspect. We were a big company, but we had a lot of people, but we were still pretty small. Piloxing was self-funded. It was all coming from the three founders. So we were able to actually grow a lot and just hustling and being out there, building relationships and doing it from the ground up. And I feel like that's followed me throughout my career a lot. Yeah, and then one thing led to the next. I ended up sitting in a bunch of different committees for Europe Active and really wanting to make a difference and for myself and for the industry and being part of it. Started traveling to Asia. I started um, doing. I took over the license. We were working with a licensor in Asia, in China. So that was the first time we were trying that business model, and I was the main person for that. So that was really exciting to have that opportunity and just go and learn. And throughout this entire time, I was forced to push myself into understanding different cultures, right? Because you're here every time you're going to a different country and things are done differently. You have to speak differently. You have to explain things differently and be very aware of how to present yourself and how to educate and how to do business. Um, so great learning experience. Um, been very grateful for all the time and all the support I've had throughout that whole journey. But then in 2016, we decided to go back to LA and leave Europe. And at that time, I had a number of years with piloxing. I was living and breathing piloxing. I was like, well, I think it's time for me. I want to build my own brand. I want to be someone that people think of as Mia, not always the piloxing girl or the piloxing woman or associated with piloxing. So I started doing a few random things. I went to do tours in LA. I had during all the traveling that I was doing in Europe, we kept hearing that was at the time where like boutique fitness and, these different concepts was very up and coming in Europe and in other parts of the world. Whereas in US, it's been established for many years at that time and very successful. So, okay, let's go around and let's see what that's all about. It's group fitness, it's teaching. Instead of being the teacher, I became the participant, I evaluating the studios. And it was a great experience for me because it was the first time in a long time that I became the person to experience the service. And I think that's applicable to other industries as well. It's important to kind of step back and see what is the experience actually like. But that opened the door. It was something I just started for me and to be able to share my experience, but that just set me off on a completely different path because of my relationships in Europe. They wanted me to lead tours and take them around. I got different speaking engagements because of it. I started talking about boutique fitness and different events, which was also something I had on my bucket list was, okay, I want to be a presenter, like not just presenting piloxing because we're a sponsor, but actually speaking on a topic and going out to these events and being a leader in a certain field. And I, it was just an opportunity that I created and then it was available to me because I took that step. So I did that and I kept working with piloxing for a time. And then, I felt that it was time to take the next step out. Sometimes we're just ready. I loved piloxing and I'm incredibly grateful for that time of my life, but I spent over 10 years with them. And then I headed into the whole job search market, which was a completely new endeavor for me. And it was scary. It was intimidating. It was a lot of backlash that I had never expected and feelings of, not being enough or not being seen or understood from where I was coming from. But, I think we all have to take that as a learning experience and tool, and that helps us grow. But through relationships, I was introduced to the company that I'm with today, which is the BFS Network. Incredible founders of this company. And I think what was really important to me there was that he could really see my experience in my past and he really valued what I had done up until that point. And I've been with that company since. And right now, I'm in a COO role, helping to lead all the operations, the team. And that also triggered me to go out and do additional fractional COO work. So I have worked for different gyms, helping them spearhead their operations and preparing them for growth, um, expanding into different other licensing programs as a brick and mortar compared to what we did with Piloxing, which is obviously group fitness. So yeah, I mean, throughout all of these different steps, it's really those relationships and pushing the boundaries and trying new things and not being afraid of it, being a little uncomfortable, and just pushing yourself. So, yeah, here we are. And now I'm working in operations, kind of where I started with that dance
Right.
convention back in the day.
I love it. Thank you, though, for walking us through as well the global back and forth, the global experience, because I think you're right. The culture and the relationships and the ability to experience all of that is crucial to, I think, a lot of our careers, but we may not appreciate that as much. So thank you, Mia. Toby, obviously there's a massive overlap in some of the top topics there that Mia presented. So again, likewise, step back for us though, Toby. Walk us through your career because it's been again, likewise, we met last a few months ago, obviously, and it's been ever since we've overlapped about 10 different times. And obviously ISPA was the last time we met in person, but step back, walk us through your career because likewise, not a traditional path in fitness and sport, but very intriguing at the same time.
Definitely not. I was not a dance instructor, but I love dancing now. But anyway, it's like I have a twin brother, and we both grew up more or less with my grandparents because both my parents worked, and my father was a passionate football player. That was the reason why my mother never wanted us to play football because she
Oh,
hated being on the soccer pitch every weekend. So what she did is she put me when I was 6 years old. She put me, only me, not my twin brother, I don't know why, into a swimming club. So I had to do swimming, and I hated it in the very beginning. Uh, it was the drill set that you don't really want, like people shouting from the outside of the pool, and then you're like 6 years old, and oh God. But actually, I have to say, because I was my twin brother and I, we were both chubby kids, so we were well fed, overfed, and our nicknames were Tank One and Tank Two,
oh no.
which is really nice. Yeah, kids can be very, very gentle.
Kids are
And
cruel.
but sports actually helped us out of our misery. So it really, like, from, of course, we, when I was 13, 14, 15, we grew, and then I put there hours and hours of sports. So that really helped building up confidence, building up strength, losing weight, getting respect. Yeah? So it's
Mhm.
like everything I am today is mainly based on the fact that my mother put me in the swimming pool, and
Right.
my poor father, he had to attend all those swimming competitions every weekend, and swimming pools, especially inside, are not really the nicest environment for a weekend. It's hot, it smells like chlorine, and it's like, oh, it's loud. And but he was brave, so thanks dad, and thanks mom, for putting me in the swimming club. So yeah, so sports was part of my life since I was 6. uh, I wanted to become a fighter pilot at the military. uh, that was my wish and my dream. I flew gliders when I was 15. So Segelflugzeuge, gliders. So and then I went to the military, the health check, and during the health check, I said, no, I will never, ever join the military because I hate the way you talk, you behave, you speak to me.
Ooh,
For 10
interesting.
years, I cannot do that. So I needed a different plan. So I went to do, instead of that, at that time, you could do, instead of military service, civil service. And I worked for um, an organization that was taking care of elder people, that was taking care of handicapped people, which was a good learning curve. And there I met my new career at university because there was a leaflet. At that time, we still had paper. There was a leaflet on the table, and it described the perfect curriculum for me because I had to look for an alternative to my fighter pilot and then aviation career. So I ended up in the best university of the world, That's the little promotion block from my side. And I did economy of sports in Bayreuth, which is in the north of Bavaria, sports marketing, sports management, and law. And that was when I met my, at that time, future boss, because I was studying in Barcelona. Went home for Christmas. My good friend of mine picked me up to go back to the airport, and he was sitting in the car. And so we spoke for 2 hours while we were commuting. And then I said, okay, if you ever need an intern, because he's just started with ISPO as a trade show director. And he said, oh, very conservative, never had an intern before. So, okay, let's stay in touch. 6 months later, he called me. I was back in Germany. He said, Toby, can you start in 2 weeks? And that's how everything happened. So I'm a typical job hopper. It's almost to the day, 28 years that I started with the company. Still I'm with ISPO, leaving the company by the end of April, taking on a new career, new job. But sports has always been part of my life. And actually, I would say, in the business of connecting the dots, because this is what it's all about. It's not about selling square meters. Square meters is just it's technology, old school technology, analog technology, and you can do that digital as well. But it's all in connecting people, connecting businesses, companies, everything that we do today, for example. And so it's part of my life.
I love it. I mean, 28 years on the back of a 2-hour car journey where you just happen to chat to somebody and offer it and then to volunteer for an intern. I love it. I mean, to your point, Mia, right? Relationships. Nothing I think happens in the world where we haven't had the opportunity to meet people, talk to them, see the passions, hear their passions, and kind of go from there. Toby, take a few more dots for me as well, because we met through the WFSGI, and we might share what that is and why you sit on that board, but also you sit on the Economy of Sport board as well. So connect some of that for us, for those that are not in the industry, don't know what they do, and don't know how they operate and what the goals are, if you don't mind.
Okay, when I started, when I was in my mid-20s, I never quite understood the importance and relevance of associations. For me, and at that time, I have to admit, it was old white men in suits and ties, and I was the one wearing no suit and no tie. And that was a bit a different world. But over the years, I just simply understood that it's very important to have associations, and especially working associations, not only paying staff for being around, but really paying staff and doing great things and lobby for good, because this is something that our industry is lacking behind. Because most of the people, they are gear freaks, they love their products and they love the technology, and they can talk for hours about shoelaces, how long and how many. This is unbelievable, but it doesn't really matter, because that's what I really love about WFSGI, the World Federation of the Sporting Goods Industry, which is the global lobby body for the sporting goods industry. Representing all the big brands that most of the people know, from Nike to Adidas, Under Armour, and so on, Puma. For the first time, we're doing something great, I would say. For the first time, in terms of, we are negotiating a contractual relationship with the WHO, the World Health Organization. And you know what? Many people would say, oh, what a surprise. But why now? And that's exactly what the WHO said, because they said, where have you been all the last 20, 30, 50, 100 years? Because the only two lobby bodies, the two lobby industries are food and beverage and pharmaceutical industry. And that's the reason why in all the recommendations for national governments around the globe, the term physical activity or sports is not even mentioned. It's mentioned once in a negative context. So we're doing this, which is great. And with my former university, it's a very, we were like the pioneers of economy of sports. Now it's everywhere, all over the place. It's not only in Germany, it's international now. And I'm the chairman of the advisory board to my former university, which I love, because it's also about networking. So it's not the biggest university in the world, but being a pioneer and using the network properly means that we have a network of sports business professionals that is the general secretary of the German Football Association, which is a woman, by the way, Heike. Then from Sport 5, FIFA, UEFA, like all the football, of course, associations, clubs, but it's also like agencies, it's FC Bayern München, it's everything. It's like the Adidas and so on. It's a great, great, great network that we use. And it lives because most of the people identify themselves so much with sports. And I think this is the mother of motivation for everybody. And it's pretty easy to be connected with people in sports, but you have to do it.
Right.
It's not coming to you, but you have to be active and actively approach people and connect the unexpected, I would say.
And thank you for that. I mean, we've had Emma Mason-Ziebler on the podcast as well as the CEO who's taken over the last year on the WFSGI. And to your point, making great strides with the work with the WHO and more. And likewise, I said that was a very male-dominated organization. I know Andy Rubin has been a huge champion for bringing in Emma as CEO there. And likewise, that board, I think he also talked about having to convince a board of men to put a with female CEO. I mean, this is only last year. This is not like it's in the 70s or 80s. This is a very recent talk. And again, hats off to Andy Rubin for sponsoring and supporting and making the right, the right decision for business. Because as you can see, it's been phenomenal the last 12 months watching the sporting industry. Because then they're just talking about physical activity. And you're right, Toby. We always assumed. I mean, I would always have assumed that the sporting goods industry was talking and measuring and tracking and promoting physical activity. But obviously, it's not a metric. As I said, it's gear, it's sporting goods, like it's apparel. So yeah, you get to join those dots together because I think in the mind of the non-industry people, we already assumed that was happening. So it's good to see it being structure put in place and metrics being put around that. And again, coming back to relationships, right? Building relationships between WHO, sporting goods industry, and the organizations to go with that. Mia, come back a second to me for the BFS networks and tease that out for me more there, because to your point is we're all talking about relationships, talking about networks, talking about trade shows where we go and meet people in our industries. And that network, we always have to be intentional about building it, creating it. And I'm very intentional on this podcast of breaking down the silos, hence like bringing you guys together from different parts of the world, different parts of the sector as well. So give us some more context there on that.
Of course. Yeah. So actually, the BFS network, we started as a boutique fitness solutions. And the two founders, they were traveling a lot of the trade shows across US, and they recognized that a lot of these trade shows are very focused on big box gyms. As we know, like they are taking over, it's very dominant, but the boutique fitness, running a boutique fitness studio is very different operations and a very different business model. So what they wanted to do is pull that sector together, allow them to speak to each other, connect them, just like, again, connecting the dots, giving them the opportunities, having the right speakers and experts come and share their knowledge. So it started as a summit, and then it kept developing into what it is today. And right now, we see ourselves as a growth accelerator for the boutique, fitness, wellness, recovery, and spa space. With obviously our major audience at this moment is fitness space. And we have developed a peer network program, which, coming back to relationships, is really about bringing studio owners together where they can share best practices, learn from each other, support each other. To different trainings and other tools and resources that can help them grow their business. One of the other important parts that we do is that we survey the industry, and we're currently working on our most comprehensive survey yet, where it comes to looking at boutique studios and fitness studios and identify what is it that profitable studios do? What is it that profitable Pilates studios do? What is it that profitable yoga studios or strength studios do? So that they have some benchmarks to go by, and again, support them in being able to grow their business and run them more efficiently. So I'm very proud to be part of an organization that decided to really provide that support to a specific portion of the industry. And when it comes down to it, when we're talking about female, our area with boutique fitness, there is a large female ownership of boutique fitness studios. So
Right.
we're really trying to give as much opportunity to spotlight these studio owners that have really excelled in the different spaces and allowing others to come and connect with them and learn from them.
And why do you think that is? Because you're right. The vast majority that I'm aware of boutique is female owners, female led, and then high, if I understand correctly, high participation of females as well. So it's more female participant members than male. Why do you think that is? Why have women chosen more the boutique side versus big box?
I mean, I don't have the perfect answer, but I can just assume, if you look at group fitness in general, which was my area throughout piloxing, it's very female dominant, whether it's from the instructors or the participants. A lot of boutique studios, there's two different owner types of boutique fitness studios. There are those that are instructors or trainers that decide to go and open up their own, pulling out and doing their own business, and then they open their own studio. And since we have a large percentage of instructors being female, I can assume that that's the driver for that group of ownership. And then there is another group of ownership of studios, and often in my experience, and just speaking from my personal knowledge, I don't have any numbers on this. There are a lot of women that are in professional in corporate America that is just tired of being in that space. And they really want to go and do what they enjoy doing. They found a passion in fitness, in whatever group fitness format, whether it's boxing or yoga or Pilates, and they decide to pull out, either becoming trainers themselves or starting businesses and run that. And so they're coming in and leading with more of a corporate background and business background than the other. So I think that's the reason why there is a bigger
Right.
percentage of women in our space.
It's amazing, isn't it? The corporate. I mean, likewise, I started my career with one of the biggest companies in the world as well, and I would have heard it all the time. Our instructors would have been past previous corporate leaders that I likewise have just probably get burnt out or have exhausted themselves, where they're like, I've done 20 years or 30 years in corporate. I'm good to step back, appreciate lifestyle, appreciate my health a bit more, and take time and then dedicate my time to it. So that's interesting to watch, and that's definitely been 20, 30 years. Plenty of people can point to there. So that's interesting to hear that there are a lot of choosing into the boutique side of things. Is that they have the business skills, right? Then it's just learning to their passion with it. So, but do you see that as well? I see you nodding as Mia's talking there. Do you see that on the sporting side from your experience and in Germany?
I was just thinking back about how I started working for ISPO as a trade show company. My first job, by the way, was organizing a seminar on women as customers. That was 1997.
Wow.
I was at that time, I was wondering, okay, why do they need a seminar on that? Because it's so obvious that women are customers and probably they have the purchasing power and take the purchasing decision. You know what? Hardly anything has changed in the last 27, 28 years, which is, I think, one of the reasons for boutique fitness studios, because women pay a lot more attention to details. I was like at university, and before we had our weightlifting and we were pumping up, and that's the male thing. Yeah, it's like a little bit like the sporting goods industry at the moment. It's this faster, lightweight, more performance. It's everything is KPI driven, whereas the bigger purpose of everything that we do as an industry or as human beings is overseen, because it's more about 1 gram less, more water column, whatever. So that's changing and that's the beauty of having women as in leadership positions, like Emma, for example. All in a sudden, you have different conversations. You don't have like that alpha male, like 20 have to prove that they are the best in the room. No, it's about how can we improve the industry? How can we work together? How can we cooperate better? So I really love balanced teams, It's not about like having only women and no men. I think it needs to be balanced for better business. I'm totally convinced of that. And it was underrepresented. Women have been underrepresented in our industry and in many industries, because I'm not only responsible for sports, I'm also responsible for jewelry and watches and automotive industries and mobility sector. So, and trust me, it's even in the jewelry industry, it's more men than women, which is also a bit awkward, because we think, okay, jewelry is something that is for women mainly, but no, it's like the men take the decision. And if you only have men taking decisions, and if you apply that to the sporting goods industries, you end up with products for men. Whatever you pink it, shrink it, doesn't work.
Right.
So coming back to my 1997 experience with the seminar, Women as Customers, if you have men in the decision-taking process along the value chain, you end up with flowers on a pink ski. It's not what women want. And you need women along the journey, along the decisions. You need them to be in the driver's seat as well. And then you come up with better balanced business opportunities that help growing beyond traditional KPIs.
Yeah. Oh, Toby, thank you so much. Mia, it was hilarious at ISPO this year. I got a bee in my bonnet around sports bras, because every single woman needs sports bra, right? Regardless of your activity type. But there was a lot of trades, a lot of apparel on show, and not one woman, not one man also had worn a sports bra or could explain to me why the design was the way it was, or what was going to be suitable for a contact sport versus yoga. It's like,
Yeah.
guys, and actually, I met Toby, one of your friends and colleagues as well, who was involved in sports bra design throughout his career. And it's like, have you ever tried one on? No. So you were in charge of designing a sports bra, a
That's,
product. And I was like, how many women were on the team? He's like, I don't know if we'd any women on. I'm like, so there was a whole
oh
bunch of
my God.
men
Well, can we cut
designing.
that out, please, Grace? Cut that out,
Yeah.
please. It can only get better.
Well, it could only get better, but this was 3 months ago, right? Where I'm like, anyone at all who's designing this product.
Wow.
So I do have a massive challenge
That's,
for every sporting goods manufacturer going, please, 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 please do better. If nothing else but for sports bras, it's a product that every one of us needs. At least one, if not four. Like the opportunity is huge to do this
Seems
well.
seems like a big target group to me, but
It's a big target group. And it's actually one of the reasons why girls are dropping out of sports between the ages of 12, 13, 14, because they're developing, it's sensitive area. They don't know where to go. They don't know how to get proper fitting. They're obviously changing body shapes. And I won't lie to you, I've yet to meet any manufacturer. I'm like, they do a really good job on, making it comfortable to get sized, to get to try it, and then to upsize as they get bigger as well. So yeah, huge opportunity, business opportunity for those listening. And I'd happily talk to anyone who's doing a good job on it, but I haven't met you yet. So challenge to the industry there. Mia, when you're at the trade shows and
mhm,
you're presenting on stage, and I know we're shifting a lot here, right? We're
mhm,
starting to see more balance. And Toby talked about his first talk at ISPO 27 years ago, whatever it
mhm,
was around the female customer. That's exactly what I talked about 3 months ago at ISPO, was again unlocking the female customer. But from
mhm.
customers to speakers to managers to owners to founders to investors and so on, what are you seeing are the changes, and what excites you as well about these changes? Because you're on stage for many, many years, but possibly one of the few, I would imagine, often. I'm assuming you're seeing it changing. Are you?
Yeah, well, I mean, yes, for sure. And I think I want to distinguish between like being on stage and presenting fitness, a fitness concept, right, as an instructor versus being on stage presenting from a business perspective and a
Right.
business aspect. And, starting off, I was really on that fitness side where, there were a good number of male presenters too. Actually, I feel like that was fairly equal, even though the majority of the participants were primarily female.
Mm.
Um, so personally, I don't know if there is a big change on that aspect of presenting. But what I do know, and I was just recently listening to a seminar from Les Mills, who's another big, producer of fitness programming. and they've done a lot of studies on instructors and the participants, and they see now that it's a much, much closer percentage. It's more men that wants to become instructors and teach group fitness than it was in the past, which I find really interesting, and hopefully that will potentially also help drive more men in the group fitness rooms and see the potentials from that. But from presenting perspective, I'm not sure if there's much of a difference right now. From the business side, when I went to all of these different trade shows talking or presenting for piloxing or some of these other topics, yes, I mean, I was one of the few women in the room very often. And I honestly, that was also the first time where I really started to recognizing what it was to be a female in the business industry, because until that time, I've been so focused on more of the active side that was very female driven. And throughout the year, you started seeing more women on stage. You started seeing more conversations. I believe a lot has been driven because of the conversations that we're starting. I joined a women's organization called WIFA. I think we talked about WIFA when we spoke earlier, right when they started, and then started getting engaged with that. And they were really pushing for the voice of women and speaking engagements, etc. And then obviously there is many other women organizations out there. And because of that rise, I feel like we're getting more and more awareness. Mm-hmm. Events are starting to try to bring in more women, but I haven't done a look recently of what the percentages are, but at least it's going in the right direction, even though it's a lot more work that needs to be done.
Right. I think you're right. I mean, obviously the collective have a network as well. And as you said, we're kind of trying to look at the two sides of the coin here. One is making sure more women are willing and able to get on that stage and putting their hands up. And, we have a huge body of work, I think, to get more women to go, I'm happy to get on the stage and share my accomplishments as well as my credibility and share my thoughts. But we have work to do there. I think we're still holding ourselves back somewhat there. And then at the same time is with the organizers of events, and it goes back to like where Toby is, for example, is organizing and how hard it is to get women on stage, but also to be proactive and intentional, because I think it takes possibly more work. Toby, would that be fair? More of a have to go and ask.
So true. It's it's really tough to get women on stage. There are, of course, great women speakers, business women, successful, but sometimes it's like, again, if you put 20 men in a room, they all want to be on stage. If you have 20 women in the room, they ask the woman next to them to go on stage, but not themselves. It's that different type of behavior that we need to somehow support female leadership, because it's for me, at least, it's probably easy to say, but I see two patterns. One is that the women try to be more bold than men, more men like a man, or they are completely like in the back. So it's in between that. So we have a more natural relationship with each other, which sounds a bit ridiculous because we all live together. But in business context, and that's changing. I'm happy that it's changing in the sports industry, in the sporting goods industry now, but it's a long way to go. If you look at it, I've been 2 years ago, I was in a room with 100 CEOs of the outdoor industry. And there were 3 women in the room and 2 were with me. So I was looking at that crowd and I knew them. I knew most of them since 25 years. And I was looking in the room and said, I think we have an issue here. We need to do something in the industry. Oh, yeah, that's true. It's true. Yeah, we need to do something. But you have to do it. Don't simply talk about it. You have to do it. And as you said before, but really, really, really credits to Andy Rubin, who really supported the decision and he pushed it through with the board to have Emma in a leadership position. And all in a sudden, within 6 months, you see that the committees, they completely change face. It's like it's a balanced committee now. It's instead of 95% men, it's more or less 50-50. The conversations are future-oriented. for business issues and not for companies issues. It's for the industry, for the benefit of the industry. Yeah, it's great. We need more examples, and we need to give those examples, good examples, a platform and outreach, and people need to learn about it and how to do it. It's easy, but you have to do it. If you don't do it, nobody will do it.
And that's that sponsorship piece. That's the likes of Andy's in the room without Emma in the room, right? He's talking about the next leader and the next best person without them being there. And that's where sponsorship is important.
Yeah.
Mia, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, as we're talking here, we can go out and we can try to put women as speakers, let's say, on these events. But what's also really important is to get them to speak to other, like in this room where you have a room full of CEOs, they're up on stage. Maybe that's something why it's not as incentivized to go up and speak when you only speak to a room of male CEOs, right? But at the same time, we know that we need that woman as a role model to encourage more women to step up in leadership roles, and men to provide that opportunity for more women in leadership roles as well. So it's not just about the speakers, it's about the leadership in businesses as a whole.
Right. And again, going back to what we were saying there, the gender balance here is important, because to your point is this, we ideally need the entire population, to be thinking about activity, whether that's from young kids to teenagers, male, female, and every stage of life in between. So it's not that we're saying it's one is better than the other here. It's the balance that we can get the balance around the table. We can get products and solutions and services that are better balanced for a broader population. Hence, the business opportunity becomes bigger and better. So yeah, we're at a changing time, but we have to be intentional. We have to be very intentional. It won't just happen. I think the gap right now is 104 years still for to get to gender equity, pay equity. That's not going to be acceptable. I mean, obviously, but we don't have that time. I mean, I'm conscious that, I don't have any kids, but my nieces are, give or take, 10 years behind in relation to getting into the workplace. I want it to be a very smooth journey for when they get there, and they can do whatever they want when they get there and got rise to whatever position they want, regardless of what role and what industry that they're in. So yes, shifting and changing. Toby, you mentioned there around the shifting and changing of the world as well. Some of the stats that we're seeing are troubling, to say the least. Physical inactivity stats are very high, and WHO has deemed inactivity as a crisis. We also know women's health is a crisis, and one of the podcasts from last week I was talking to was around infertility being a crisis, and again, lifestyle being a massive factor in that space. The shifting of sporting goods and the shifting of sport, we're seeing a huge surge of investment in women's sport, which I think is phenomenal to watch, and it's so amazing. And I know, Mia, you spend a lot of time in the US right now. I was looking to get to capture some of the amazing aspect of the basketball last year, and Caitlin Clark and many of that. So it's been great to watch the investment. It's been great to watch more participation, more viewership. Still seeing a massive difference between the media, like what's covered in male sports versus female sports. Like, it's still ridiculous. I mean, I look at every paper that I pick up. If you see a story on a female athlete, we're doing well, like any story. Whereas there's pages and pages and pages covered on men's activity. So media's got to do better. But Toby, from your side, I mean, I know we're seeing the shift of focus towards physical activity. Are we seeing sports growing or declining? I think we're seeing it declining, but again, the numbers don't seem to match. And so talk me through some of the industry. Growing or declining?
That's a good question. That I would rather say that this is something that is currently changing, which is great, because the question is, what is sport? And is sport the right term for what we need as an industry? And is fitness the right term? That's the reason why in German we don't have that word, like physical activity. It's lower. The obstacle is a lot lower than sport. Right. Sport is always a marathon. It's Mount Everest. It's always the extremes, because our industry loves to communicate in extremes. Male driven. It's marathon in under 2 hours. It's the new world record here. It's the gold medal because the fastest, and so on. So this is the narrative that we have. We need to change the narrative. And you can only change the narrative with reasonable people in the driver's seat, which is definitely women, because they're not necessarily only talking about world records, but they're talking about the physical inactivity crisis. And the situation is really bad, but it's at the same time a huge, huge, huge opportunity to grow the sports industry and the fitness industry and the physical activity industry and the health industry, because there's a huge, huge, huge inactivity crisis coming. The numbers, the data shows it's a huge, huge, huge part of the global population, especially among young people, more than 80%, and the figures are getting worse. And that means a lot of costs coming up, health systems collapsing, health issues, and that's even related to workforce health and a threat to global economy. So there is such a huge opportunity for our industries, but we need to change the narrative. We need new connected dots, new partnerships, new services, new products, new narratives, new communication channels, new communication tools, new images. It needs to be different, which is, I think, an obstacle in itself, because if you used to do for the last 20 years world records, Olympic Games, it's nice. But now you need to talk to people you've never seen, you've never talked to, channels you've never used, you don't know them, you don't want to talk to them because they're not apparently as sporty as you are, but this is your customer.
Yeah.
This is your future.
That's a really good point. And I see Adidas have changed their kind of positioning recently to much more as like we're alongside you, supported you. So much more of a population approach. And ASICS have obviously done some really great marketing recently around desk and getting off your desk to be physically mobile. So likewise, the word of movement as opposed to fitness, as opposed to sport. So yeah, the terminology is important there. Mia, on the boutique side, and I'm conscious that I've been looking at the likes of the Tonal and the Mirror, and obviously Lululemon partnered with Mirror there. So, and Toby talks about the partnerships as well. Give us some of the indications of the partnerships and the kind of the opportunity of businesses working together on the boutique side of the world that we should be knowing about and that are quite exciting, and likewise are fitting into a broader population, be physically active as opposed to the extremes.
Of course. Yeah, I think, what we see and what we are recognizing is an important step in the future here is, the merge of the fitness into the wellness space or into the health space. And there is a lot of, in US specifically, there's, a lot of pharmacies closing down, the access to doctors, the access to live people to get the support that you need is not there the way it has been for a long time. So this is an opportunity for the studios, which is, they have their little community, they have their local support from a fitness perspective, but to bring in some of these other aspects when it comes from wellness or health or other supportive products. When it comes to female health now, we see a lot of more conversations, whether it's hormone therapy for menopause, or whether it's red light sauna, or some of these other recovery spaces that are out there that is just good for well-being and health in general, and to see that merge. So now the studios is a space for the fitness, but they also provide an opportunity for these other health aspects that is important, that everyone starts looking at and taking advantage of as well. So I think that's where we see a lot of partnerships and a lot of excitement, and people are interested now. We just need to connect the dots there and get the information out there and get those people that are working in their separate industry for the health aspects or the wellness or the recovery to be connected with the fitness people. Because we a lot of times we work in silo, right? We're so fitness and we're so into that. And then we forget about all the other ones. It's like you were said, Tobias, we need to reach a different audience. But to be able to reach that audience, whether we're women or men, we have to step out of this little bubble that we are in ourselves and see, okay, well, how are we going to speak to them? I think that's why it's such a big challenge right now. How do you reach the younger generation? We're trying the TikTok and we're trying the this and we're trying the that. And, we have to learn how to put ourselves in other people's shoes and see what are their experience like. how are they perceiving life, and how can we provide our products, and how can we develop our products, whether it's fitness programming or wellness or sports, to suit their needs now, because it's different.
And it's an exciting time, as you said. It's an exciting time because of talking about health, talking about, like you mentioned menopause there. So the life stages, and I keep challenging marketing teams, use the life stages. They're not taboo topics anymore, and they should never have been. So talk about menopause, talk about pregnancy, talk about fertility, talk about postnatal, talk about mental health, talk about all of the conditions that we relate, and we have science to talk to as well. So let's use this the bridge. It's not rocket science. There's plenty of science and evidence to link the data between the two. So we should be absolutely doing that more and more and more and more and more. Just no end to it. And as you said, it's an exciting time for partnerships. So we have a lot of work taking place between the aspects of wellness and health and fitness and sport and technologies, in there as well. So it's an exciting time. I'm conscious we could talk about this for hours and days because of plenty of. I know we all have plenty of ideas of who should be working together and how things could be. But the last question before we sign off on this one, in relation to the people that are doing great work already, and I want to make sure that we're spotlighting some existing leaders from different sectors here. As you said, we work in silos. There's amazing people doing amazing things in parts of the world, different sectors. So I want to ask each of you to spotlight one or two, or as many as you want really, of female leaders in your sectors or in your space that you want to call out, so that I'm aware of them, but also our audience and our viewers are aware of who are the great leaders that are worth spotlighting that we may not know about, but yet we should absolutely be celebrating and supporting and likewise making sure their impact is felt. Mia, do you want to go first?
Sure, of course. And it was so funny when I read this question. I was like, okay, well, there are so many of them.
So many,
So
right.
I'm going to give a few.
Okay.
And I think one of the most important parts that I've recognized throughout my journey too is to recognize that you have relationships within all the different generational spaces, right? And people that have different experience within the industry. So I have three women that has had an incredible impact in my life that are from different generation. So I'm going to start with three of them. And the first one, her name is Petra Robinson. She has been in the industry since the aerobics kind of started. She's one of the initial women in the whole Zumba company and the growth of Zumba. And she was an incredible mentor for me from the beginning. And I'm incredibly grateful to her to have been there throughout my life. And she's a source of knowledge and wealth and support. And then I have Natasha Belroth. She is my very, very close friend and colleague. She's one of the co-founders of Piloxing. She has empowered me from day one working with her. And I feel like thanks to her, I got a lot of opportunities through Piloxing, but also to grow as a human. And I'm so thankful to have her call her one of my closest friends today. And she's obviously in the industry. She is also a lawyer. She has a degree in law, so she's coming from a very different perspective, but working with our industry. And then Amira Pollock, she is another woman that has had an incredible impact on my life. Her and I connected via VIFA. She's actually the one who connected me to BFS when that transition happened. And she's just an incredible leader. And she's taken her company, Strap Club, from an idea to now being speaking at events on a variety of topics. And, she's a great role model for a lot of people out there. So those are three women in like the three different kind of generations as I see that. And that's what I initially had in mind. And then I saw that you had asked about, up and coming leaders. So I wanted to spotlight another woman that I know now for only a few years. Her name is Jessica Armstrong. And I just want to highlight that from the beginning, she is an incredible connector. And when it comes to what I've mentioned and what we talked about, building relationships, she is phenomenal in that and supportive and just stepping out there and taking initiatives, especially on the women's, groups and connecting people together. And yeah, she's just phenomenal. And I can't wait to see her grow even further. All of these women have incredible journeys already. But for her, I definitely see her as an emerging leader that's going to get up there a lot more.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Great shout out there. And likewise, women that I don't know. So this is the beauty, I think, of connecting our dots and our silos and our getting a break in our echo chambers. We get to see the amazing women doing amazing stuff because they're not as visible across every sector. That's just the joys of sectors being broken, being silos. So Toby, add to that for me. There are 4 amazing leaders there. Who would you like to spotlight?
I would say one of the few women I know that in this industry have been always in leadership positions is Margit Goza from Sport 2000. She's the CEO. So she's the head of one of the biggest buying associations in Europe. And she used to be with Reebok. So she was with the sporting goods industry on the brand side and now with retail. And she's doing an excellent job. And she's kind of a role model and inspiring many other women in the industry and sector. So Margit would be one of my favorites. Again, another woman that is super strong, and she is not only doing great in terms of pushing sustainability within the industry, but also driving the political message and responsibility that the industry has and can take, which is Antje von Dewitz from VD. VD is a German outdoor brand founded by her father. And immediately when she took over, you noticed the difference between, again, performance-driven versus, okay, we talk about the social aspects of our business, the impact, carbon emissions, we drive sustainability. So in brackets, the German Patagonia, which leads me to Patagonia. And Nina with a name that no one can say or spell, Heiji Kanyan. She's the GM, general manager in Europe for Patagonia, and of course, like it's an amazing example of how companies don't define themselves through their product necessarily, because then I think you're doomed. But beyond the product, it's the brand and what they stand for. And so she's a great role model. So 3 outstanding women for me in the industry and in the sector, and an inspiration for everybody.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you so much. And it is interesting. I was looking up to see Margit and Nina speak at ISPO last year. And likewise, again, someone that's been around sport all of my life, I didn't know these women. I also did not know the story behind the sustainability and all of the work being done there. So we have to come back to sustainability and sports and all the work being done in the industry again, because I think there's a huge story there to be told. And we do know from the research that women will, to your point earlier on, into the detail, will choose sustainable products first. If we can we'll try to support the climate. So that data is important from a buyer's perspective as well. So lots more dots there to connect. But thank you guys for shouting out those 7 amazing leaders doing amazing work. I will ask for introductions because I want to speak to every one of them, and hopefully likewise, the more we connect and break down these silos, the more impact we can have on our generation, but also the next generation, and we can hopefully turn the tide on some of this inactivity crisis and the women's health crisis that we're seeing today. So thank you both, and I appreciate we could talk for hours, but we won't today at least. We'll break it down. And Toby, you're heading into a whole new career in the next few weeks, so you're looking forward to a change. It sounds like you're having a nice transition at the moment.
Yeah, I do. I'm starting connecting the dots, connect the unexpected. Because I'm still in the trade show business, but I'm now moving into a sector that is mainly men dominated, which is craft. So tailors, carpenters, masons, bakers. Right. So it's an interesting one. And you know what? I figured out that there are so many connections between sports and my current industries, so sports, jewelry and watches, because it's all craft education in Germany. So it's all organized through my new bosses. And I start connecting the dots, because if you talk about recycling, upcycling, repair, you need the competence. And this is craft competence that we don't have at the moment, or we lack talents. Same with watchmakers. So if you want to have the sustainability and you want to have your PV on your roof. Someone needs to install it, and
Right.
mechatronics and so on. So super interesting. And I figured out they are even advanced when it comes to women in leadership positions. They have their networks in place. So they're pushing and working because they understood we have a lack of talents. We need to somehow include 50% of the population.
Right.
Because otherwise it doesn't work. No
Right,
word,
right.
no answer.
Interesting. A whole new podcast, Toby, on the craft industry and how do we look at gender balance on that side of the world. That's going to be a fascinating one. We'll connect those dots another time. Excellent. Guys, thank you so much again. It's been a pleasure. I know we could definitely do this all day, but I'm hoping that this is impactful for our listeners. I've no doubt they're going to take away a whole bunch of information from you guys, and likewise made the spotlighted leaders as well on what they're doing. So thank you so much. A pleasure, and keep doing what you're doing. It is powerful. It is impactful. I, for one, appreciate what you've both done already and what you're going to be doing as well. So it's a thank you from everyone as well.
Thank you, Grace, for having us.
And happy Women's Day, because tomorrow is Women's Day.
Happy International Women's Day.
And here comes the coincidence. Happy birthday, ISPO. Because the first in 1970, it's the 55th birthday tomorrow, started on the 8th of March. So that's no coincidence. This is destiny. So this is
happy
fate.
Birthday to ISPO and happy International Women's Day.
Yes.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. You can connect the dots with others by sharing this podcast with colleagues and teammates. At wearethecollective.world, you can join a professional network, avail of professional development, and engage your support team. We collaborate on the shared pursuit for gender balance in health and business. Until next time, keep connecting the dots.